Can you guys hear my music? Welcome, welcome. Oh, thank you. Steffi, I will check it afterwards. Thank you for letting me know. Happy Sunday night. Happy Sunday night. Thank you everybody for coming to Sass Up Your Week. From our kitchen to yours, flip the holiday table. We have some festive holiday music, some ugly sweater action, and Jessica and I cannot wait to share all our tips with you guys on how to flip the holidays. And I see Jessica. Hey, Jess.
Hi. I love you too. How's it going?
You can't really see the whole llama here. Hold on, let me move back.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I was I don't know. Can you see the table?
I can see the table.
Cool.
Yeah. And how is the music too loud? Can you hear me? Okay.
A little bit lower.
Yes. How's that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll keep it on in the background as long as it's not super distracting. If not, I can lower it. But we have a good mix going on of traditional holiday merengues.
That's awesome. I love
in
it.
case we need a dance break. So, welcome everybody to Sass Up Your Week from our kitchen, Jessica's kitchen, and my kitchen to yours. Flip the holiday table. And this is really a full circle moment for me because I literally just completed, I'll lower this because it's like distracting me. I literally just completed my very last class for Institute for Integrative Nutrition. So I'm graduating from nutrition school, and Jessica has been such a big mentor for me. Not only did she give me so much advice and guidance, she also invited me to my very first IG Live, and now I'm here hosting her. So it's such an honor, and thank you for joining me. Yeah, so thank you so much. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jessica Arrendol-Kiely, and as Naomi said, we've actually known each other for a while. So I'm so happy that we get to do this together, and that we both have found this passion.
Yeah.
Or this, and are able to share it together. So it's really, really neat being the Dominican, and also just our life paths are very parallel. So I just think it's a really beautiful thing. So I wanted to start there before I introduce myself. So I appreciate you having me. It was a pleasure having you as well. So congratulations. It's such an awesome goal that you made for yourself, and you accomplished it. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So again, you're very welcome. As I said, I'm Jessica Arrendol-Kiely, and I am a wellness consultant. I work with women and children, and just basically helping with stress reduction, all types of wellness, all forms of wellness. And I love it. I get to do what I love every single day in different places. And it's very enjoyable. So I'm so excited to be here just to talk about how it is that we began our journeys, I guess, or parts of our journey, especially a little bit more personal. which I don't really get to do often. I don't really get to go into the more personal because I usually host people.
Yeah.
So this is really nice for me to have an opportunity to kind of tell people about the work that I do. So I'm excited. And I mean, what better way to do it but with music and some food, talking about food and just
ugly sweaters.
and then ugly sweaters. So excited.
Awesome.
So
the goal for today is to share with everybody very simple swaps of ingredients or maybe incorporating new meals into your holidays. What can you do to make it better, not only for yourself, but for family members, for children, all these things that are just so part of our tradition, and we just go with it because it's our tradition. That's how our grandmas did it, our moms did it, but we know better now, right? We know better. We've gotten education and we have awareness and mindfulness, and we want to share that with you guys as well. And I just want to share a little bit of why this is so important to both Jessica and I. And I'll really lower the music for this because it's really impactful. These small changes that we're going to share with you, along with some fun family stories and our own experiences, like Jessica said, is really important for our community. So I just want to start off, and this is going to be the very serious part of this, but just sharing some stats that are really staggering and why it's important for Jessica and I to share our work with you guys and our tips and our knowledge. So I'm just going to look to the side because I'm reading this, and I can share this source with whoever is interested of where I got this from. It's not going to be long at all, but it is impactful. So I just want to share this. There are several risk factors for heart disease that one can control. And this is specifically about women, right? And I wanted to share this because as women, as Hispanic women, as mothers, we rarely take the opportunity to take care of ourselves. And it is very important to do so. So there are several risk factors for heart disease that one can control, which is why education is so important in preventing and managing heart-related conditions. Many of the known risk factors for heart disease, high blood pressure, hypertension, high cholesterol, diabetes, physical inactivity, and being overweight are prevalent among Hispanic women. And I know that many of us know at least a family member, someone we know ourselves who may be suffering from these things. According to A H A I can't AHA, American Heart Association. Wow, that was so difficult. Among Hispanic women, so 30% have high blood pressure. 76% are overweight or obese. 20% of Hispanic girls are physically inactive, and 11% have physicians diagnose diabetes. 5% have diabetes but are not aware of it, and 20% are pre-diabetic. And if you're a Hispanic or Latino American adult, your chance is more than 50% of you developing diabetes at a younger age. So now all of these diseases are kind of all in one, if you think about it. They do cause a lot of heart issues. I just know of today someone who passed away who was not even 60 from a massive heart attack. You know, those, thank you. Those type of things are devastating because we know it can be prevented. And the majority of these things, almost all of it, is prevented through food and movement, right? So that is what we want to share with you guys. How can food that you can make easy swaps for and still have it be so delicious and still in your tradition be also useful not only for your health, but for controlling and managing our older generations and obviously teaching our young kids how to make those changes as well. So is there anything you want to add, Jessica?
yeah, no, I just think no, I think that was the statistics are daunting
Mm-hmm.
and a little overwhelming
Yeah.
as well, right? And I think that that's one of the biggest reasons, and I'll share a little bit about that as we move though. through the program tonight. But, you know, one of my biggest inspirations was just knowing that, or I was kind of just sick of seeing and hearing stories about people in my community who were dying young.
Yeah.
You know, these were people who were vibrant, you know, had lovely souls and kind and did so much for their communities and their families and were such assets to every part of their life. Mm-hmm. And they die young. Yeah. You know, I was sick of hearing that story and having that be the reality and the accepted reality.
Right.
You know, because again, as you mentioned, like, they go, it just comes with age. Yeah. You know, this is just what happens. You know, people, hopefully you will be lucky enough, right? Lucky enough to live. And yeah, there's of course that piece of, we don't know when we're going to go, right? That's just the reality of the situation. But there are a lot of things that we can do to help prevent, like Naomi said, a lot of those diseases. And it starts really young. It actually starts before we are even born. You know, these are things that happen in the generation before. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes we think that we're just living our lives just based on the generation that we're in right now, just based on what we're doing in our own lives. But I'm pregnant, you know, and I have a child that I'm thinking about constantly. Of course, because I'm aware, because she's in my body now, right? Of course. But the things that I do have a huge impact on her for the rest of her life. But not only her, but then future generations. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think of that as, I take that job pretty seriously. So when I realize that that's the reality, it's not just my life that's being impacted. I'm directly impacting those who love me, and I want to be around for them for as long as I can. But then in addition to that, those who actually, you know, that I bring into the world. So I have two, this is going to be my second daughter, you know, mm-hmm. and having that opportunity to be able to teach her that it's not just about the way that you look, right? Like that's what people get it so wrong. It's not about, it's not just aesthetics, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, that's a wonderful kind of thing that comes with it, so, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's a perk, right? But it should be more, do you want to be, you have to ask yourself the question, that's what I ask myself, do I want to be here for the long term? And when I get into my adult, like later in my adult life, do I want to just accept the reality that aches and pains happen as well? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of those things can be controlled with the things that we put into and onto our bodies. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think it's very important that we think about it as from this lens that it's cyclical, right? Yeah. We're constantly making these decisions, and it doesn't have to be a punishment. I think that's the biggest thing.
I know.
You know,
I know.
It doesn't have to be. It really doesn't. I mean, we can enjoy our time. We can enjoy everything that everybody else enjoys. You know, I love eating.
Me too.
I love to eat. I love to cook. I love to cook for people. I love to enjoy meals with people. There's so many beautiful things with meals.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be something that is a punishment, saying that, just because I live a healthy lifestyle doesn't mean that it doesn't taste good.
Exactly.
Not at all. Not at all.
Exactly.
So thank you, Naomi. I know we're going to keep on going here, but I just had to say that part because it really is one of the biggest things that inspires me is just knowing that I'm doing something for not only myself, but for my family and future generations.
Yes. And thank you for doing that work and inspiring me too, because at first I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. And then it's like, it starts coming together. And something that you said that I really want to point out is just because getting older and getting all these diseases and aches and pains don't go hand in hand. We assume it does because that's how we've seen past generations. That's what's common. But both of us are here to let you know that it doesn't have to be that way for you, and you can change that generational health trends the same way we're breaking so many other generational patterns that are for another conversation. This is the health version of it, right? We can definitely make a difference. And it's like, oh, la rodilla, la espalda, this and that.
Yeah. Me duele esto, me duele.
Yeah, your fingers swelling, your feet swelling with the heat, all of those things are your body talking to you and letting you know
Exactly.
that something's up, right? So,
Exactly.
and we can definitely help you with that. But we're here to talk about food, right?
Okay, so we can get into it. Yay. It's
Let's
exciting. It's
see.
exciting. And we'll keep talking as we're moving, you know?
Yeah,
And I'm sure that there are gonna be questions coming up, and then Naomi's gonna, she has a couple of questions. We'll just go back and forth, right? And just enjoy
yeah,
our time together.
yeah.
So
And
it's just laid back.
yeah, you guys,
Mhm.
if you have questions, feel free to pop them in to the question box or the chat, and we'll answer them for you. So we can keep moving. And I guess so we've both kind of shifted ingredients and stuff that we've been using, right? And then it
Mhm.
kind of trickles into the family, right? Whenever we prepare meals for
Right.
people or they come over or we bring a dish, it starts to kind of change. How has the response been from your family? What kind of feedback have you received, and what kind of changes did you start making for yourself that you introduced to them?
So I would say that I've definitely in waves, right? It's happened. So about
Hmm.
15 years ago, probably was my first real bout with what they thought was Crohn's disease.
Mm.
And so when I was in grad school the first time, the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on with me. They wanted to take out my gallbladder. They wanted to take out part
Mm.
of my intestines. They wanted to do all these different things. And but with the idea that they still didn't know what was going on. So something didn't feel right about that. Like
Yeah.
I felt like this was an exploration, but taking parts of my body that you weren't even sure were the problem. So I had no other choice. And I've always been a pretty healthy, active person. I played sports my whole life. But I didn't really know about nutrition until that moment because
Hmm.
I had to learn. You know, I just thought you just ate, right? And you enjoyed it. And it was fun. I always found food as a beautiful thing. It
Hmm.
was always something that brought my family together. But it wasn't until that moment, as I mentioned, where I made a huge change in the way that I saw the things that I was doing in my life.
Right.
And thankfully, with complete dietary changes, I did not have to have any surgery. And it gave me enough time for my doctors to figure out that I actually didn't have Crohn's disease.
Awesome.
So that was really big. That was a huge aha moment where I had to, my body was screaming for my attention. It was screaming for my attention at that point. And so made those changes, started feeling great in my body, feeling like, wow, food is actually not only enjoyable, but it actually does something for you. It gives you energy, right?
Hmm.
Like I never thought about food as that source. I just thought it was like
Yeah.
something that was enjoyable, and you just cooked and you ate, and it
It's
was enjoyable.
it's not
But
just
there was
coffee
this
that
other
gives you
component.
energy.
Yeah, exactly. There was this other component that I wasn't aware of, and
Hmm.
then, fast forward. And so I just kept going with that. And then fast forward, I started to realize also that I really enjoyed the process of cooking and learning more about food. And so I continued to learn as much as I could.
Hmm.
And then I realized there was actually another level to this, a
Yeah,
whole
crazy.
another world out there. And I just started exploring it through recipes. I was like, I can make a healthier version. And it became a game for me.
Yes.
And so, I was like, I bet you I can make that better for you. Tasting, I don't want it to taste like cardboard like everyone thinks, right?
Hmm.
And then I started sneaking in dishes to family parties and, and just kind of waiting for people's reactions. Because my family I come from a family of cooks. Like, people in my family know how to cook very well. And you know, in our culture, oftentimes people think that it's only the women that cook, right? There are a lot of families in our culture even where the men cook,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that I grew up that wasn't strange for me. the men and women in my family cook,
Hmm.
and they're very critical about how it tastes
Yeah.
because of it. And so my grandparents owned restaurants when I was before I was born, and so they were really, really good cooks. And so I had to convince them, and it was fun to be able to sneak things in and like wonder if they would be able to tell. And yeah, at first it didn't taste good. I mean, with any recipe or anything that you're trying at first, it's not going to come out the way that you expect it to, maybe. But
Hmm.
so you have to kind of be free to experiment, and that's what I allowed myself to do. So, like I said, it was a game, and then I got better at it and better at it and better at it. And then some things happened in my family where, diabetes is something that runs in my family,
Hmm.
heart conditions as well. And so there are some family members who are pre-diabetic, and they really believed in the fact that they could control it with their diet, because one thing they did not want to do was take the medication. And
Hmm.
so that was their wake-up call, right?
Hmm.
And so we put out this kind of challenge for each other. And so our family has been very supportive of one another, and I'm very lucky in that I have a lot of different members in my family. Like my brother for sure is one of those people. My aunt and uncle they love information. My mom, and my other uncle, it wasn't an easy sell, but as we started moving down the path, we did it as a group, and it has been a lot of fun, and we continue to. So you see a lot of it, and a lot of them actually haven't had to use medication
That's
because of
amazing.
their diet changes.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a little bit about my spiel, I guess, on my background.
No, that is awesome. Thank you for sharing. And definitely doing things in a group or having a few people to
Right.
support you is definitely important so you don't feel like that oddball out, which I have been in many situations. I'm that one girl that's making things complicated or
Right.
siempre está en la dieta. And it's like, guys, I'm not on a diet. I choose things that are good for my body. That is all. That is the whole purpose of it. It's not la dieta. It's not that my weight is none of that. It's just knowing how food affects the body, right? And one
Mhm.
of one of my past lives, the trainer, she was also a nurse, Lizette, and she has said herself that she has seen countless times where people who have diabetes or high blood pressure, once they incorporate a healthier lifestyle, it completely disappears. It disappears, guys. It goes away. Not to say that, I mean, it's a very blanket statement, obviously, but there's
Right.
potential,
Right.
right? There's potential
Yeah.
for it to go away.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah, medication has its place, right?
mhm,
Medication has its place. That's not what we're saying at all.
yeah.
But even with medication, lifestyle helps that medication go a long way.
Hmm.
And in some cases, because you've made those lifestyle changes, you actually don't need it. So, in regardless if you go the medication route or not, the lifestyle piece is really something that's going to be helpful for you.
Yeah,
And hopefully, you won't need the medication because of the
exactly.
lifestyle change.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's a big point.
And even if you have to take your medication, you can live more
Mm-hmm.
freely. And I have, a few weeks ago was my mother's birthday, and our cousin came over who's a chronic diabetic to the point where she would pass out if, her sugar got too much out of control. And I had made dinner and I had made dessert because my mother only eats my carrot cake. Like she's very
Yeah.
particular.
Ooh, that's an honor.
I know. I'm so
For mommy
honored.
to like your carrot cake, it's an honor.
Um, and she was very worried to eat, especially dessert. And she lives in kind of fear of the food that she's eating.
Oh, that's too
And
bad.
I didn't convince her to eat anything. I didn't because it's her choice, right? But I did explain to her what I made, how I made it, and she was comfortable enough to eat a full plate of food plus dessert, which she rarely gets to do because she has really bad diabetes. And
Hmm.
I didn't expect anything of it, but then I heard that she got home and she tested her sugar to see what had happened. And she was ecstatic because her sugar remained normal. And she got to eat dessert, she got to eat all this delicious food and still be within range and something healthy for her. So this is why ingredients do matter and the way you prepare food does matter. And it opens a window for anyone who's suffering with whatever it is can make a choice whether that's going to be good for them or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story. That's a beautiful story and such a positive one too, because it does help for other people to understand that you're not just doing this just because, right? It's something that you're trying.
I'm
right?
trying to be complicated, right?
Like, exactly. So I think that's a wonderful thing that she experienced it herself and was able to tell other family members.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. So I'm so happy that, and I feel like that's also a huge step in your family's story, right?
Right.
So beautiful. That's so beautiful.
Awesome.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Let's get into some holiday dishes and see like what are some options that we can do. If you were to change like one thing in your cooking, in your holiday cooking, what do you think that might be?
Are you asking me this question or are you asking the
I mean, I can give, and just to let everybody know, it doesn't have to be the same, right? Jessica has many different strategies and many different substitutions that she can make. And I can do the exact opposite. That is also good for you. And that is okay. Because different things work for different people. So we're just sharing a variety of things that I might do or that Jessica might do. And you can choose what can work for you. All of it is correct, right? Even if it's different. So that's awesome. Yeah. So what is one thing you would change?
Well, so one of the biggest things is the sugar intake, right? So back to your story about that, right? That sugar intake is huge because it does leave you feeling not so great. You have a sugar hangover and then also a sugar crash potentially that same day.
Yeah.
Right? So you might feel great in the moment, but then later on that crash comes. And sometimes you feel it for the next day and the next day. And that change in your blood sugar level, that spiking of the blood sugar level is, and if you do that constantly, that's what makes you more susceptible to diabetes. That's that's why it happens, right? So I'm very careful, even in those moments of just bliss, to be careful with the amount of sugar because it's just unnecessary. You don't need that much sugar in order for things to actually taste good.
Yeah.
And in fact, I can actually taste when things have actually a lot of sugar in them now. It's almost like it's like grindy in my teeth, and so I have accustomed myself to not take in as much sugar. Again, I enjoy eating.
Me too.
They're just ways to do it. So sugar is one of the biggest things that I have paid attention to along the way. And so some of the things that I think about when I think about sugar is substituting it for other things like maple syrup. Some people use things like sweeteners like stevia, but you can actually taste the stevia, and that can actually really impact the taste of the food. So what I do is like maple syrup, also coconut sugar is also really low on the index, the glycemic index.
Yeah.
And that glycemic index is when it's the index that shows the spike of blood sugar level. So you have certain foods that really impact your glycemic index. And so coconut sugar is on the lower end. And so you can use things like coconut sugar, maple syrup. But I also, if I weren't going to do a sweetener, some of the tricks that I use are things like maybe cinnamon or nutmeg.
That's a good one. Spicy.
And cinnamon and nutmeg have been my go-to because it really does bring a sweetness to the dish without adding the sugar. And people think it's actually a lot sweeter than it is. But why I also like cinnamon is that cinnamon, a lot of people, and maybe, they don't realize this, but this is part of the reason that not only for taste, but that cinnamon actually helps to really level out your blood sugar level. So it's one of those things that helps. So it's a win-win.
That is true. It
That's
is a
my.
win-win. I
So,
know I like to put cinnamon on things like maybe plain Greek yogurt. A lot of people add
mhm.
sweeteners to it because it's tart. Sprinkling cinnamon on top of it completely cuts out the
Mm,
tartness, like you said, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable. So exploring with that, and in your coffee too. If you're having coffee, it kind
mhm.
of cuts out the bitterness. You get to wean off the sugar. So all those things are great.
Yep.
Um,
And it allows for the slow release,
mhm.
right, of things. So when you're also talking about the cinnamon, like throwing it on some fruit, right? That also, why the fruit is different than just the juice is because it has the fiber, right? But like throwing a little bit of cinnamon on an apple, a cut up apple, is
It's so
delicious.
good.
It's like so good.
So
So,
this is a great tip for holiday, like if you're making coquito or desserts, maybe increasing the sugar, I mean, not the sugar, the cinnamon, and decreasing the sugar a little bit, can still balance out that sweet flavor in your dish, right?
absolutely,
That's awesome.
absolutely,
We have a,
especially with the coquito. Oh my goodness, yeah,
right?
yes.
We have a question on sugar. What about brown sugar? Is it better for you?
I don't like brown sugar either because they're still pretty level on the glycemic index. The
Hmm.
difference is that it's, the processing of the sugar. That's the difference. But the
Hmm.
way that it hits your glycemic index is very similar.
Yeah.
So people say, "Oh, I'm doing brown sugar because it's healthier for me." It's
Hmm.
healthier for you because of the fact that it's less processed.
Yes.
But it does impact your glycemic index, meaning your blood sugar level. It does
Hmm.
provide those spikes in your blood sugar level.
And
So I hope that's helpful.
yeah, and also being mindful of certain brown sugars. I know there's one that it's like azúcar crema, and it's
Yeah.
it's colored sugar. So they color it with
Mm-hmm.
molasses. It's not actual raw sugar, if that's what you're
Mm-hmm.
going for, right? So that's something
Absolutely.
to be mindful of. Even if it's just sugar, reading the ingredients is huge because then you'll notice it's brown because they put molasses in it, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's
Yeah.
so true, and a lot of that happens across the board with the
Hmm.
coloring. So
Hmm.
you might think, "Oh, this looks like 100% juice," but is it from concentrate? So we'll get into that when we do the drinks in a little bit.
Oh my
But
gosh. Yes, guys, we're doing drinks.
that's
We know we need a drink in the holidays, okay? Um, but there is one
And
thing,
I'm going to do a non-alcoholic version because,
yes,
as I mentioned earlier.
for everybody. Sometimes, and it's great because sometimes you don't feel like drinking, and then your family
Exactly.
peer pressures you into why you're not drinking, why you're not drinking. And this is a great way to have a drink in your hand that doesn't necessarily need
Mhm.
to have alcohol in it. But I did
Exactly. And it's enjoyable.
exactly, it's still
Very
as
much.
delicious. I just
Mhm.
wanted to share like, if I had to change one thing in cooking my meals,
Okay.
what that would be. And I would say is the oils that we use. The
Ooh,
the canola oil,
great one.
the corn oil, vegetable oils, all those big, huge gallons that we find in the
Mhm.
supermarket, go rancid in our body. And it's one of the main things that causes inflammation. So your fingers swelling, your
Mhm.
fingers hurting, your knees hurting, your joints,
Yeah.
all of that is acute inflammation in the body. And if you're consistently eating things that are cooked in that oil, especially in the holiday season, we eat a lot, and that is okay. Switching
Mhm.
out the oil can really help with inflammation in the body. And what happens is
Mhm.
that when your body is consistently inflamed, because inflammation is good. If you cut yourself, if you bruise yourself, if you
Mhm.
have a virus, like that's what it's there for. The difference is that it consistently stays inflamed when you eat these types of oils, and that leads to diseases like the diabetes
Mhm.
and the high blood pressure and all those things. So, what I have
And
done,
eventually cancer.
yes,
It's
thank
been linked to
you,
cancer. The rancid, yeah. Hmm.
the big C word. So, I have a
Yeah.
few replacements for that. That I use
Ooh.
at home, and I buy the huge versions because I know they only sell the little ones. So I'll show you actually. Number
Yeah.
one is olive oil. It does have a lower cooking like heat point. So for things
Right.
that you're not using high heat for, they're great for eggs and things like that, raw and salads, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
My other go-to is, you're gonna laugh at this. Don't laugh at this. My huge tub of coconut oil.
I'm not laughing at that. I have the same thing.
You do?
Yeah.
So this is my huge
Yep.
tub of coconut oil, and they come in two different versions. They come in raw and refined. With the refined, you do want to be a little bit more careful because what that means is that it's been processed with heat. Now, this brand in particular steams it so that it's a more gentle process without chemicals, which is important. This refined
Mm-hmm.
version doesn't give the coconut taste to
Mm-hmm.
foods, so that's why I have that. So I fry tostones in it. Any
Mm.
baking products, any baking
Yep.
like cakes that require oil, the recipes usually say vegetable oil. I use coconut
Mm-hmm.
oil. So those are two great options to swap out the canolas and all those things for. And the third thing I've really gotten into is ghee, which is clarified butter.
Mm-hmm. Yum.
Um, so those three different oils you can fry. Like my favorite is sauteed mushrooms in ghee. It's so
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
if I had to switch one thing in all of my holiday meals, and even for baking, that would be my thing.
Yeah. That's great. I also would add to that list a higher smoke point avocado oil.
Ah, yes.
The thing about avocado oil, though, is that it's a little bit more pricey, so you don't
Hmm.
really want to use it to do the frying if you're going to do some gentle frying, right?
Yeah.
The coconut oil for sure
Yeah.
is definitely the way to
Oh,
go.
and
But with the ghee too, though, yeah, I was going to say with the ghee,
no.
it has a little bit of a lower of a smoking point, meaning that the higher the heat, it will burn on you.
Hmm.
So if you are sauteing, throwing in a little bit of olive oil or um, coconut oil preferably would actually
Hmm.
help to keep it from burning.
Amazing.
That's
And
just a little tip.
for those who like the spray things, they have olive oil in the spray
Mm-hmm.
things too. In case you're making
Absolutely.
like an egg or something real fast in the morning, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now I'm
Cool.
getting hungry.
I know. We should have brought food. We're gonna have
Okay.
to do a huge like meal one day, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually.
That sounds fun to me.
How about we jump into a drink? I know we've just spoken about
Sounds
one
good.
ingredient. Yeah, how about that?
Awesome. Cool. So the drink that I'm going to make is a holiday mojito. Yum, yum, yum.
Oh,
I know. I knew that you love mojito, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to make the holiday mojito.
yeah,
So I'm
show
going to
us.
start off. Yes. So what makes it the holiday mojito is that it has the cranberry, so you can put I'd say about a teaspoon of cranberries. And what I do with these cranberries, these are fresh cranberries. And what I
Yum.
did was I actually put a little bit of pomegranate juice, 100% pomegranate,
Yes.
with the strawberries excuse me, with the cranberries because they're a little tart.
Mm-hmm.
And then I added a tiny drop of maple syrup to bring
Mm-hmm.
out the sweetness. Because although cranberries are very tart, they do have that low level of sweetness. And if you add that a small, just like a drop of maple syrup,
Yeah.
it really does bring it up. So I did that, cooked it for 10 minutes, and then let it cool, and then put it in the fridge. So I have that here. I'm actually going to put a little bit more because I like more strawberries. Cranberries. I like the tartness of it.
I love
So then
tart.
I'm going to put it in a shaker. And then what I have here is some lime wedges. So I'm going to put 3 in there.
Yum.
And then I also have some orange wedges. I'm going to put 3 orange wedges in there as well. Okay. And then I have a few things of mint for the mojito deal. And then I'm going to use my muddle get all those flavors out of there. And again, this is the non-alcoholic version. I put a little bit. I usually put about 4 leaves of mint. I really like the taste of the mint, so you can kind of put more if you really want it to be a little bit more minty, but I'm going to show you a little trick to actually make it feel a little bit minty. So again, what I put in is about a teaspoon of the cranberries. Then I put in 3 wedges of orange and 3 wedges of lime. Okay. I'll put that to the side now.
Do you think you could make this like in a pitcher, and then whoever wants to add alcohol adds, and whoever wants to have non-alcohol?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yep. I was going to show you the moment where you can kind of like go your separate ways. So I have a little bit of I have a little bit of lime juice here, freshly squeezed. So I'm going to put about 1 ounce of lime, freshly squeezed orange, about 1 ounce of freshly squeezed orange, and then cranberry.
Forget that cup that you have to measure things.
It's awesome. I love it. Yeah.
By the way, guys,
an ounce. I could have done them all together. But I like seeing them separate. You know, it's just fun that way. But if you wanted to, you could just do the ounces with this cup. It's wonderful.
And fun fact, Jessica used to be a bartender, so she knows what she's doing.
I know. It was a lot of fun. I love making drinks. And for me, I don't actually drink that much, not only because, obviously, because I'm pregnant, but even before then. I am not a big drinker, but I love the taste of drinks. So you can make so many mocktails and have it really taste very well without the alcohol.
And what's the
difference? And then now...
yes, tell us. Sorry. I just was going to interrupt you with more questions.
I was saying I made my own simple syrup, and it's actually honey, water. So 2 parts honey, 1 part water. So if you're going to do 2 cups, you do 1 cup of water, and it has to be boiling because once it hits the cold, it starts to kind of it's not as liquid. It's not liquefied, right? So you have to make sure that you keep the warm water. And then what I did was I put mint in that and just let it simmer. And so see, the syrup is actually minty.
Yes.
So those of you who like the mint for the mojito, there it is. It's your simple syrup made with just honey, mint, and water.
Amazing.
So I'm going to put this now in my simple syrup. And then what I'm going to do is add my bitters.
I love that background in your kitchen. It's so pretty.
Thank you so much. So these are bitters. You can buy, so people who are really into mixing and drinking, you might say, well, I thought this is a non-alcoholic version. You can actually have non-alcoholic bitters. I made my own. And so what I did was I actually had a little bit of pomegranate juice, a little bit of maple syrup. I put cloves, star anise, cinnamon, nutmeg, and then I put a little bit of the zest from an orange.
Nice.
And so you just use it just like you would any other bitter. A couple drops will go a long way. And that bittery taste, people think that it's just, for that bittery taste is obviously like for the taste within the drink. You can taste it, but it's actually also for digestion. So why I like bitters is that it actually helps to ignite the digestive juices. So
I love that.
A little tip there. Which you need, right, to help you.
Exactly.
You go.
So what's the difference between this drink you're making here and one that you would have made before, like at a bar or something?
So I would have put, So yeah, I forgot to tell you that. So that what I would have put into this was I would have made this. I would have used the bitters that was alcoholic, and probably like an orange bitter.
Yeah.
And then I would use, because this is a holiday mojito, and I'm using oranges as my base citrus, lime and oranges. But the oranges really, really are the star player here. What I would actually use would be an orange infused or some sort of orange flavored rum.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's get ourselves ready here.
Are we doing the pour? Ooh.
Yeah. Just one last thing here. And I'm going to pour with ice, because you're probably like, well. Right? I'm going to pour it.
I can't wait to see what's going to look like. Maybe we should turn the music up for this.
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, you're making a mocktail. We're having a party.
Exactly. I like that idea.
I'm like leaning in, like if I'm going to be able to see over this division on the screen into your mocktail over here.
Okay, let's see.
Let's
And
see.
it's a holiday drink, so.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
So, you see, everyone? Cheers.
Cheers.
So let me try it. Let's do the taste test.
What does it taste like?
Oh, so good. I wish we were here with me. So when we can do this. So yeah, so it's holiday because it's the red. You have the red going on. I put the lime in the top just so you know that what's in it. So it's the lime, and then I put a wedge of the orange and a little bit more mint in there. And then look, you feel like you're drinking like everybody else. Right?
Exactly. Who would tell you that that does not have alcohol inside? And it's all with fresh ingredients, right? So for your drinks in the holidays, if you can put in like a tiny bit of effort and get fresh limes, fresh oranges, those things make a huge difference. And one thing I love to do, one of my favorite drinks is margaritas. So the same, just using fresh lime juice, not the margarita mixes. They're so full of sugar, you guys. They have so much sugar. But using a little bit of fresh agave. I don't mind the bitterness, so I just use lemon. And one thing I really like to mix it with, it's flavored seltzer waters. They provide some flavor. They provide bubbly and zero sugars, right? So that's actually one of my go-tos.
That's one thing that. So if I were to, this is the seltzer water that I have here that you could top it off with if you wanted to. So if you wanted to top this off, you can do that too.
I love it. I love seltzer water.
So, right? And it's refreshing.
It is. It's refreshing. A lot of people enjoy sodas in their drinks, whatever alcohol you're mixing it with. So transitioning to a flavored seltzer can do wonders for you. And then the same way that Jessica was talking about that sugar crash incorporated in all the food and then in your drinks, it can kind of balance that out a little bit, right? Kind of cutting a lot of sugar out of your drinks. So that's another, or having this fresh squeezed juices like Jessica did. Another thing that I've gotten into is making like margarita smoothies. So I love to take frozen fruits, like frozen mango, and just put fresh lime juice and a little bit of tequila in there and throw it in the blender. You have a frozen margarita that's literally a smoothie. And it has all the whole foods in there. And you can top it off with a little seltzer water to loosen it up. But if someone wants a frozen mango margarita, I mean, get a bag of frozen mango, throw it in the blender, put fresh lime juice in there, the fresh orange juice in there for like triple stack effect, and
right, exactly.
That's it. You got yourself a mango frozen margarita with all the fiber in there to help, your digestive system and all
Exactly.
that stuff.
Exactly. To help everything get moving.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a difference. So
So
talk to
I'm going
me.
to continue to drink this
Yes,
as we talk then, because this is like really refreshing.
continue to drink that because I want to get into dessert now, right? Dessert is a
Let's do it.
big one. What is something that you have transitioned from
Mm.
desserts?
Oh, I've transitioned a lot of things
Yeah.
as far as desserts. I make my own like holiday bar,
Mm.
like, and that's something that my family loves. And
Hmm.
that's not traditional Dominican, but it's something that my family loves. And I give it out as presents and things like that for the holidays. You know, secretly, if I could make my own like candy company, I probably would. Like I just it's so good because it's not super sweet, but you wouldn't
Exactly.
know. It's unbelievable.
Exactly.
And so that's a big family favorite actually. Because I always we host Noche Buena at our house,
Hmm.
and so for those of you who are listening who don't know what that is, it's Christmas Eve, and so it's a really really big in Dominican culture.
Yeah.
To host Christmas Eve, or not to host, you don't have to be the one to host, but to go to someone's house for
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, more so than Christmas. And so at our house, we host Noche Buena, and I usually like to send family members away with a little present. It's something,
Yeah.
it doesn't cost much, it just costs love, right?
Yeah.
And a little bit of time. It
Uh-huh.
does take me a long time to do, but I just enjoy hearing, people that they love it, the bark that I make. So that's one thing, but mostly if it were to be a traditional dish, or I've done flan. I've
Hmm.
done dairy-free vegan flan,
Hmm.
and I know that you have too. We've talked about this before, and it's just amazing how it came out. But and I've also done habichuela con dulce too.
Yes, I remember you told me
Yeah,
about the habichuela con dulce,
mhm,
and I had never heard,
yeah,
like, how is it possible to do that dairy free, right? Because here comes all
hmm,
the evaporated milks, all the galones de
yeah.
leche. So how do you make an
Mhm.
habichuela con dulce dairy free?
So with
Basically vegan.
yeah, so you use coconut milk, so people, right? You use coconut milk anyway.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what I end up doing is I use a coconut milk, and then I cook the coconut milk with like maple syrup
Hmm.
in it, or coconut sugar, whichever one you have or want to use. And that really kind of makes the consistency, or the taste at least,
Yeah.
very similar to the evaporated milk. Or
Uh,
not the evaporated milk,
the condensed milk?
what's it called? The condensed
Uh-huh.
milk, yeah. The evaporated, and then I add, for the evaporated milk, just the coconut milk.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Yeah.
can make a huge pot of habichuela con
Yeah,
dulce
I
with
do it
that.
in April. Yeah, because we
Because
do
it's an
it
Easter
around,
thing, right?
yeah, it's an Easter thing. So I do it, yeah.
I recently just figured out it was an Easter thing. I didn't even realize it was tied to a holiday
Yeah.
until recently. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's always around this time.
No, well, the reason that I do that is because I lived in DR at that time.
Uh-huh.
Um, when I was living in DR, the Easter season hit.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, habichuela con dulce. And I couldn't get enough of it. I ate so much habichuela con dulce that I didn't have habichuela con dulce for like a year.
My favorite is
Because
with the
it will make you
batata
go.
inside. The what?
With the batata, exactly. And
Yeah.
so instead of batata, because it's kind of hard, um, you can throw in like a sweet potato.
Oh.
But the sweet potato that I use is not the yellow one, but
Hmm.
the white one.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. I love that one. And yeah, like you were saying, I have
The Japanese yam, I think. Yeah.
I love the Japanese. Yeah, because there's two different types of white one, and
Yeah.
people
It's in
put all
salads.
sorts of names, like the Pacific Asian one, and then the Dominican one, and then the
Right.
American. Yeah.
Right.
That is a great one, and I want to hear all about your flan. I recently made a
Okay.
pumpkin flan that was dairy free, and I didn't
Oh.
intend it to be dairy free. I really didn't. What caught my attention on it was number one, I didn't really want to use the condensed milk because it's really high in sugar. So I said, oh, I'm going to replace that with something else. So I did a full fat coconut milk. similar to how you use it in your habichuela con dulce. And
Yep.
then I was pretty much on my hands and knees in the supermarket looking through cans of evaporated milk. Now, again, read the ingredients, you guys, on anything and everything. No matter how long you've been buying it, you probably will realize something that's in there that you don't want to be eating. So what I realized from every single brand that they had on the last shelf when I was in my hands and knees and my butt in here, is that every single can had carrageenan in it. And it's something that is in many, many, many dairy items. It can be in ice cream, whipped cream, milks, creamers, in this case, evaporated milks. And carrageenan, it's not good for our system. Again, it causes a lot of inflammation. It causes, digestive distress. It can cause arthritis, so all of your joints hurting and all that. And we bring these things up like evaporated milks because we know it's very popular in a lot of the holiday desserts, in the coquitos, in all these things. So offering different options of what you can use is important to us. So I ended up also making my own evaporated milk with a nut milk. I took the nut milk and I just boiled it on the stove for a little bit. And I got evaporated milk with that. I used the full fat coconut milk. It wasn't vegan because I still used the eggs, but instead of using the sugar for the caramelo, that's super important, I used maple syrup. And another tip on maple syrup, make sure it is actually maple syrup and not melted sugar that you're buying. There is a difference. If it's 100% maple syrup. Okay, so so yes, just please make sure. And it was pretty much just like you, just experimenting, because I didn't want to use the sugar. And I said, well, let me just try. I didn't even know it was going to work. But it was the same process of just heating the pan over the heat and just letting it evaporate a little bit. It thickened up and it just turned out beautifully. So yeah, switching out evaporated milks and making sure you're reading the ingredients on milk items. If you're choosing to use that, making sure it's carrageenan free is really, really a good swap to make in your holiday desserts and drinks.
Absolutely. Yeah, the carrageenan they sneak it in so many products, and the yogurts. I mean, it's pretty much in a lot of the different, and even in the nut milks that you buy at the store, you're like, oh,
some of them really nice do, yeah.
You have that. So you have to be careful with that because you're thinking that you're making a change, which the change that you're making is in the right direction. However, you just don't. You're not completely there, and and sometimes you're just unaware of it.
Right, you just don't know. Yeah. So, all right.
Do we have any questions that came up, or any more questions?
We have a lot of ways and hays and little hearts and all those things, but not any questions as of yet. And if you guys do have questions, feel free to pop it in the chat.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, one thing I also
there were a couple of things that came up. The with the different types of recipes too, like the switch outs for what was it?
Yes.
Rusa.
Yeah. So
pastelón, moro.
Yeah,
right?
we wanted to go over some popular dishes that people love during the holidays, and also what can be added to the spread to make it more wholesome. Maybe some new veggies. But yes, there were some dishes that are super popular that people love during the holidays. Pastelón, moro, ensalada rusa, coquito, which we kind of went over of things that you can switch in there. The flan, which we spoke about as well, and drinks. So yeah, what would be something for the oh so famous ensalada de papa, whether it is traditional or rusa, that you would do?
Yeah, so I can't go into the details of this recipe because it's my mother's recipe. So I'll just give you one swap.
The highlight. Yes, just one swap. Yeah.
I just that's the only reason. I'm just letting you know. We know how our moms are with their family recipes.
I know. I don't want to get sued.
Exactly. Or disowned.
I know.
So, and if my mommy's listening, mommy, don't worry, I won't go into detail. So, the big switch for me is a lot of these mayonnaises, they have so many fillers, right? And those preservatives they use in mayonnaise, specifically, if we go back to Naomi's point earlier, with the oil, right? Because that's the base of mayonnaise. So they use a lot of canola oil. A lot of canola oil is used in these mayonnaise. And if you go to pretty much every brand, so if you can find a brand, it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive, but of course, these are things that you're making every once in a while, right? Mm-hmm. And I know Naomi has another kind of swap, so she'll share hers in a second, but there's this Primal Kitchen is the brand, and they're the only mayonnaise that I've seen that doesn't have the canola oil. In fact, they use avocado oil instead. Nice. So, and it tastes pretty good, and you can't tell the difference. So I would say that would be my big swap. Or just make it yourself, because it's actually really easy to make.
Mayo?
So all you have to do, which I've also done too. Yeah, so I've done that too, because I'm like, oh, I need a lot of mayo for this if I'm going to make a huge one. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to pay, because they're small containers, right?
Yeah.
You end up paying a lot more because of the small containers. So I'm like, you know what? If I just go and get a whole bunch of eggs and a whole bunch of olive oil, it's just eggs and olive oil, and then you flavor it after.
Oh my gosh. We're going to have another live of you teaching us all these like condiment hacks.
Yeah, I'd rather not pay for a condiment if I don't have to, especially because it's like healthier for you. They just come in these small containers. But which is fine if it's just my family, my small family. But if I'm going to a family event, I'm not going to spend all that money on that condiment.
On a huge
so I usually end up making it myself.
Yeah. And something to point out.
And lime juice. I'm sorry. There's one thing that is added to that. You would also add lime juice or lemon juice too, because you need to have the acidity.
To your homemade one.
Yeah. To the mayonnaise. Yeah.
To the homemade mayonnaise. Ah, nice.
Some people use vinegar too. Some people use white vinegar, apple cider vinegar. Just something acidic could also be helpful too. So just play around with it. Again, you can make it at home.
Awesome. And something to point out from mayonnaise and a lot of products that say, oh, we do this with olive oil. We do this with coconut oil. With olive oil, all those oils. Please take a look at the ingredient list, because oftentimes the main oil is the canola oil, and they put a few drops of the avocado oil, olive oil, whatever it is, and they advertise that in the front of the package, right? So again, back to reading the ingredients and seeing what the main oil is in whatever product you're buying. So my kind of switch out, and for some reason, a lot of people that come visit over here don't like mayo. And one time I made a potato salad and they're like, oh no, I don't like mayo. It's so gross. And I'm like, well, guess what? This doesn't have mayo and it's still so creamy. I swapped out the mayo for Greek yogurt. Yeah. And it was just as creamy, just as delicious. And the people who said they don't eat potato salad because they don't like mayo ended up having like thirds of this salad. Now, granted, it wasn't the traditional Dominican ensalada de papa. It was another version of a potato salad, but I cannot imagine that it wouldn't work in the same way for our version of it.
That's great.
And what else? What else came up? Moro and pastelón. What tips do you have for those?
I feel like the moro is pretty straightforward, no? You want to make sure that if you're going to use cans of beans, that you're watching what is in it too, and also too that the lining of the can is BPA free, because a lot of people think that, oh, cans are all made equal, and you're like, oh, I can just buy these cans of beans, and beans are pretty cheap, right, for the most part.
Yeah.
But that BPA is an important piece, the BPA lining. is important because that can actually create it's called an endocrine disruptor. And so it impacts your endocrine system, which is your hormonal system. And especially for women, that's a huge, huge, huge deal. Because what it does is it actually creates what is called a false estrogen in the body. So the body reads it as if it were an estrogen, right? And so you have estrogen dominance within the body, but it's based on those false estrogens. So it really reacts in the female body pretty poorly and can create a whole bunch of inflammation, a whole host of different issues. So those cans are really important to make sure that they're again, BPA free. So that's one piece. So if you are a person who's a can person because you want to save some time, make sure that that's the case. And then also too, what's in that water? Is it the water based in salt? Mm-hmm. That's a big thing, right? So if it's based in salt, there are a couple problems with that, right? It's already salted ahead of time.
Yeah.
But then in addition to that, it does not allow for the grain or the bean to actually be able to be digested properly because it prevents the breakdown of the bean. And you know how in our culture, people soak beans, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, right? We do that. Like there are things that we know in our culture that people don't pay attention to that are for a reason, right? And so if you're going to be soaking the beans, making sure that you're soaking those overnight would be the best option. And so that's usually what we usually do. But there are people who kind of say, oh, I'm going to just, go the easier route because we don't have a lot of time now.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's really hard. So just paying attention to those little pieces go a long way. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that you can really tell if that's the thing that is actually bothering you is the amount of gas you have.
Keeping it real.
Just you got to talk about poop and gas.
So what's the importance of soaking the beans? Why is that important?
So you're soaking the beans to get the outer layer of the beans to start breaking down, and allowing for the enzymes to be able to then basically it's like pre-digesting it.
Yeah. Awesome. I didn't even know that about the salt in the can. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Yeah.
One change I make is I switch out to brown rice when I can, in the moros. And there's also frozen guandules and beans as well, if that's a choice. It's not in the can lining. So yeah, those are all options that you can choose to play around with. And what about pastelón? Any tips there?
The pastelón, I'm not a big pastelón maker, to be honest. I'll eat it, but I'm not like, for me, and it's strange because I think it depends on where you are. And correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who are listening, where you're from in Dominican Republic, because my family's not a big pastelón making family. It wasn't something that was part of our tradition. I always thought that was more of a Puerto Rican dish. Like our family friends who were Puerto Rican, not that I haven't had pastelón from Dominicans. And please, if you have a great pastelón recipe and you're Dominican, this is not, but I just didn't grow up eating pastelón. But again, that doesn't mean that I didn't make it because it is enjoyable sometimes. So I would say that I like just putting vegetables in there, trying to throw some veggies in there. And you can get away with putting a lot of vegetables in the meat sauce.
In the meat feeling, right? Some spinach,
exactly.
some carrots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
What I would do.
Awesome. So
I don't know, but Naomi, is that something that you experienced too? Like
the pastelón?
Is that something that for the pastelón, like, is that something that's really big in your family?
We've had it a few times at gatherings, but it's more like, you know how everybody wants to bring a dish and then there's a list of 15 things and all the other rest are taken. So then someone's like, I'm going to bring pastelón. However, when it's there, it's like gone. People really enjoy it. So I feel like it's not one of the main top things that it's on the list to make. And I feel like someone else agrees. I didn't grow up with it either, but my mom does know how to make it. Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like that's a thing, right? You know how to make it. I know how to make it, which is
yeah,
strange.
yeah,
But I just didn't. We didn't really eat it. It's not something that we ate
yeah.
much.
I actually made well, I guess it is kind of a pastelón de papa. I made it with potatoes one time for a potluck at work. And
Okay.
what was really funny, I will never forget because I made a huge tray of it. And you guys, if you're from New York, you know you do everything on the train. So I carried this pastelón on the
Oh
train,
my.
and I felt so bad because the people that, and I tried to really wrap it up well, but the people around me were like, why does it smell like onions? And I'm like, oh shit. That's totally me and my pastelón that smells like onions on the train at like 8 o'clock in the morning. But oh well, it was delicious. Anyway, when we
Oh,
put,
you should probably tell people who are not used to hearing like what pastelón is, right?
oh
Because there may
yeah,
be people on who don't know what
that's true.
pastelón is.
It's something like a shepherd's pie. So it's made with plátano
Exactly.
maduro and is mashed like a mash puree. And then you put one layer
Mm-hmm.
and you put a layer of meat in between, and then another layer of pureed plátanos on top, usually the sweet version. And then a
Yep.
lot of people sometimes layer with cheese on top. So
Yep.
it's kind of like a plátano pie, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, or even like a lasagna too.
like a plátano
I don't
lasagna,
remember
yeah.
like a combination of a lasagna and a shepherd's pie, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And I made that same version with papas because I felt like it
Mm-hmm.
would flow better at like a corporate potluck.
Right.
And
Right. That makes
the lady is like, did you peel? Because I was talking about the process. She's like, did you peel all these potatoes? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you didn't use a box? And I'm like, what's box mashed
Oh
potatoes?
goodness.
Like, what is that?
Oh
So
no,
yeah,
no,
fresh ingredients are important to me. And if you have the extra time to peel potatoes, then go like a potato peeler is amazing. I love, that's one of my favorite
yeah,
kitchen tools.
yeah,
So
mine
yeah,
too. And you get good at it.
you
The more you
do.
use it, the better you get.
Yeah, I
It's
don't know
so
if you
easy
guys,
once you're like,
I'm
yeah,
like, this is why I'm in my kitchen. Hello,
yeah,
potato peeler.
yep.
Just peel those
Yeah, I
puppies.
love the potato peel. Actually, mine is a little bit.
Show me yours.
Mine's like the wider one,
Let me see.
so it's like a
Oh, yes, I've seen those too. Yes,
gets me like a lot done. So I think there's a question here or a
a
comment.
comment. I've seen many different variations: mashed potatoes, mashed sweet plantains, and fried sweet plantains. They all sound delicious.
Mm, they do. There
Yeah,
was something scrolling up. For some reason, it won't let me scroll up. You know what I mean?
yeah. It says
Somebody
not
wrote.
box mashed potatoes. LOL. They don't agree. They don't agree with the box mashed potatoes.
I know. Well, I think it's hard for when you grow up with a lot of the things like made from scratch. It's hard for you to even think about.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's to me also too. I think I might have had it before, but at somebody else's house.
Right. At someone else's house. It's like, oh,
It's like a friend.
maybe
Yeah.
like school lunch. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Which is a whole nother
So
topic.
I think there was another comment up there too. For some reason, it's locking my comments.
Let's see. Oh, it says, thank you both for sharing. Have a great night. Oh,
Oh, thank you.
thank
You too.
you. I think that was it here. Yeah. And then there was a question, would you be able to share that brand of coconut oil to swap for my baking? And I replied back in the comments. So the brand was Nutiva,
Mm-hmm.
that I
Which
shared.
the two is great.
Yeah.
Where did you get that big tub? Where do you get them?
So this big tub and my big one of olive oil, I actually got off Amazon, and you can put
Okay.
them
You bought it.
on recurring orders. Yeah, that's where I found them because I know in the supermarkets they sell the smaller bottles and it can get
Yeah.
expensive. But these big
So
tubs
expensive.
were they were obviously a little more upfront, but I feel like you would save in the long run than getting the smaller
Absolutely.
bottles at the
Absolutely agree with that.
supermarket. Yeah.
Well, especially when
Um,
you've made that change. So
mhm.
what I would suggest is that if you're just starting to make a change like that, then maybe starting off with a smaller container would probably be the better way, because it does go bad after a long time, right? And but if you think that you're kind of wasting your money. So I would say, as you're transitioning, see if you like it, test things out, because you might not like the taste, even though that coconut oil is not something that we can taste in the food, right? You might be somebody who's a little bit more sensitive to the taste, and you might say, I can't stand it. So I would start off with a smaller version, just to be a little bit more financially conscious, because that's something that we have to do, you know. And I think that that's something that we need to also talk about in our communities. We think that just eating this way is something for people who have money, and that's just not true. There are a lot of ways. Yes, it's a little easier, right? Because you can, of course, right? But there are a lot of ways that you can work around that, right? So instead of buying the canned beans, right, buy a whole bunch of different beans. That's why we buy in the bulk that we do. But try to find the versions that are also healthier for you. And so Amazon is an opportunity for you to do that as well, you know?
Yeah, thank you. Those are fantastic points. Yes, I have tried many different things out. There's things I've never purchased again. And then this is why I have upgraded to these big jugs, because I tried it for months and months and I saw that it worked for me. And then I made this investment. So great point. And the fact that it's like, oh, you know, eating healthy is only for the rich, or eating healthy is only. However, you can accommodate. Like, to be honest with you, one time I looked at the price of a pack of Chips Ahoy just because they were like next to the peanut butter. I was surprised at how expensive that was. So if that's something that you're purchasing and you want to make these changes for yourself, then you will have that money that you can allot to something else, right? So it's just how you want to allot the cash that you have for groceries.
And also, you can actually find a lot of organic options at like a BJ's or a Costco. I don't know if that's the brands that they have, or the department stores that they have in New York.
They have
I'm not familiar. I'm in Massachusetts. Okay. So you can find, they have a lot more organic options. So you can find a lot of, you know, people say, well, the vegetables, they go bad so fast. Well, then buy frozen vegetables.
Yes.
Right? So that's what I end up doing. I would never buy fresh kale and spinach to throw in my smoothie. I just don't do that anymore. But I use it so much that it doesn't make sense. So I go to the bigger department stores and I buy those organic.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, there are little hacks that you can start to implement once you start realizing what it is that you like.
Yeah, and what you want to use it in. Another good tip, if you're buying the containers of spinach, because that's one thing I hear so much from my clients, like, oh, the spinach goes bad. And obviously we don't want that to happen because it is a waste of money. So once you open it, if you throw a paper towel in there, it will help your greens last longer because it's absorbing that moisture from there. So your cilantro, the spinach, if you're buying any of those boxed containers of leafy greens, some last more than others. However, throwing a paper towel will at least let it last like maybe an extra day or two before it goes bad. And now that we're on vegetables, thank you. Now that we're on vegetables, what new things have you incorporated at the holidays that is like not necessarily Dominican, but it's good for you and your family has kind of enjoyed it?
Oh, I make a killer spinach artichoke dip.
Tell me more.
With a whole bunch of spinach, like tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of spinach. And people think, oh, well, that doesn't sound healthy at all, right? Well, I actually use, again, I swap out the dairy because the heaviness in the dairy and things like that are really, really part of the problem, right? So I'll swap out for like a little bit of, you know, I'll put a little bit of mayo in it, right? Again, that mayo that I talked about earlier. I will throw in a little bit of like a almond-based sour cream,
Ooh.
and a little bit of almond-based yogurt, like just a regular plain yogurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, it goes like that.
That's
And
so good.
and people love it. They love it. And so I just make a whole bunch of it, tons and tons and tons of spinach. It's pretty much a spinach dip.
Yeah.
And then the artichoke, of course, I throw in some artichoke in there as well.
I
But
love
it's like
artichoke.
it's really creamy and it's just a lot better for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that I start off with people. I do try to make just really fun salads.
Okay.
So one of the things that I love to do is I love to make salads that have a lot of things in them. So I'll throw in as much texture as possible
Mm-hmm.
because it's that crunchiness that people like, right?
Yeah.
Or at least I really enjoy it too.
Yep.
So as many things that I can throw in. So I'll throw in seeds and nuts. I'll throw in some cranberries that aren't actually made in sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
non-sugar cranberries. Like I'll throw in a whole bunch, depending on the holiday, especially if it's Christmas.
Yeah.
Throwing in those cranberries and things like that is really, really good. But making those salads, big, big salads, and cutting up the leaves,
Yeah.
like the greens in general.
Mm-hmm.
I do a mixed salad. I'll cut them up because they're a lot easier to then eat.
Yeah.
So people end up serving themselves more.
Yeah.
So
And
those are the tricks that I.
that's awesome. And they can probably see, they don't see the different types of leaves because it's just cut up already.
No. Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
I'll say one thing I did during the holidays 2 years ago, and then we'll leave you guys with a tip. Thank you for hanging out with us for this long. We really appreciate it,
Yeah.
and it's been so much fun. So one thing I did about 2 years ago is I decided to do a veggie spread for the family because everything else was there. Lasagna, moro, pernil, pollo, spaghetti, like all of it. And then I said, okay, I got the veggies. I made about 5 different vegetable spreads and I
Wow.
put it in the middle of the dining table. That way they
Great
were
move.
in people's face. They couldn't really get away from it. And all the food was like over there, right? They had to get up and get it. I thought I was kind of like wasting my time because nobody was going to eat it, but I wanted to do it anyway. Can I tell you that all of the plates were gone and the rest of the food was over there because people, some brave ones started off tasting the different vegetables. And when the other people started noticing that they were enjoying it, everyone else started dipping in and they started trying it. And even if they didn't like it, even if they didn't eat more of it, at least they tried it and they learned something new. And that was the whole goal of it. So once I saw all my
That's
dishes
beautiful.
were gone, I was like, yes, they're more open to it.
Even the yeah.
All these
Well,
vegetables.
that's so beautiful. I was actually going to say to you, what I put with the spinach artichoke, I put vegetables around it,
Uh-huh.
and then I'll put the other like tortilla chips on the side, so people
Oh,
like
for
they
to
can't
dip.
really see it. So it's right there, and they're like, "Ooh, this is so good," but it's near the vegetables, and then I'll
Yes.
just put like, yeah.
That's an awesome. So little, do you use the little bell peppers? Some of them, the little sweet peppers, and you cut them in half and they're kind of like a chip already. I love those, the
Oh, that's
swat.
really good. I haven't done that. That's actually good. I'm gonna use that. I'll definitely do that. But I
Yeah.
do like the celery and the
Ah,
carrots, and I'll cut like the bell peppers. It's more celery and carrots, I
yeah.
would say. The most that we pretty much do. I think that's like the more popular ones for my family.
Awesome. Well, what is one tip that you can leave everybody with, aside from all the other ones that you've shared? Some words of encouragement,
Mhm.
inspiration. What would you leave everybody with?
Um, let's see. I would say just be kind to yourself, right? It's a process. Um, Sometimes if there are days where you feel like it's very daunting, right?
Hmm.
But having, like Naomi was saying earlier, having people that you can have as part of your like circle
Mm-hmm.
who you can have conversations, because we've had many conversations about situations that we've been in that have been uncomfortable for us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
feeling like you have to defend why it is that you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But just remember what your why is. And that's something that I work with a lot of clients with, that idea of your why. Like, why are you doing this? Because if you don't understand that, that's going to be really difficult to continue down the path, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, uh, I think that there's so much that you can do when it comes to your own health and well-being. And I've made it my life's work to just help people do that, because for me, it's such an important part of my own life. But I really do believe that there's this sense of not only, it's kind of a responsibility, right? As I was mentioning earlier in the live, I
Yeah.
feel responsible not only for my own health, but for me to be around, to do the best that I can do for me to be around for a long term for my children,
Mm-hmm.
and also for my children's health, because they start to watch you.
Yeah.
They watch what you're doing, and I don't really have to tell them, or my daughter, I again, I was saying I'm pregnant. So this daughter doesn't really know. She's just eating whatever I'm eating. Um, but I don't really have to really tell my daughter, no, you can't do this, or no, you don't have to, can't do that. I let her have fun. She's a kid,
Right.
but she watches what I do, and a lot of that is helpful for the decisions that she's making, right?
Yeah.
And my husband as well. And we are we're in this together, right? So finding people who are in it together with you, and reach out to each of us. We're
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
also be of support. You can find it. Like, I'm right here. You can find me on Instagram too, and DM us. We have so many tips. We'll probably do this again, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I love this time together. But again, finding your group of people. And so I think that
Mm-hmm.
why we wanted to do this together is because we are part of that group of people for each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just having, your circle be one that is caring and very just supportive. And
Yeah.
know that it's not going to be perfect. You just try your best, and
Mm-hmm.
don't guilt yourself or shame yourself. Just try your best.
Yeah.
So
I
it's my
love that.
long-winded.
No, it was so beautiful. Thank you. It really was beautiful. And,
Oh, thank you.
you change with the seasons too. Like something that would have
Mm-hmm.
worked for you now, maybe doesn't work for you today. Something else works for you
Exactly.
later. So stay curious. Stay curious,
Exactly.
explore, read the food labels. That's like, what's
Yeah.
it? And
Yeah.
see what's in your food. So I feel like the moment that you get curious and you have a support system, then things start to happen slowly. And
Yeah.
that's how it should be, right? Things are intimidating. This is intimidating. It's vulnerable. You've been
Mm-hmm.
doing things a certain way because of family tradition, or that's all you knew, or whatever the case may be. But as long as you're
Yeah.
curious, you have people to chat with, bounce ideas off of, try it out, see if it works. If it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work, that's okay too. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you'll be on your way. You will be on your way.
Yeah. And we're here to support. Like we
Yeah,
said, we're here to support, because again, it's not easy when you're starting this journey,
it
right? And
really
so
isn't.
DM
And
us.
yeah,
We love doing helping.
we both love to eat. We both love to experiment with swapping things out, and making things just as delicious. And we've just spent an hour and a half chatting about food. And if we could, we would probably like go till midnight. But we can save
Probably.
some for later.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah, it's so funny. You think, oh, are we gonna make it to the hour? Come
I
on.
know that you always think that.
Naomi,
Oh,
thank you so much for having me on. It was
yes.
such a pleasure and such a fun. We have to play a little bit of music though as
Where
we go
I'm
out
putting it up.
here. Okay, sounds good. And why don't we look at the questions, the last comment?
We have some
Love
wonderful
to see you guys
comments.
again.
Taking notes. Thank you for the wonderful gems. Love to see you guys again. Thank you so much. Oh, we have this. Thank
This
you.
is adorable.
I made my husband find me the old school Christmas merengue.
Oh yeah, I was telling you, I want the list.
Yes, I have it. I'm gonna share it with you.
That's great. So
All
this is
right.
so beautiful. This is a lovely time.
I had such an amazing time. Thank you so much, Jessica. If you guys have
Likewise.
questions, please reach out. We'll be here. Have a
Hmm.
wonderful week and holidays.
Yeah.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, and who knows? We get a lot of maybe we'll be on again.
Yes, maybe we'll be on. Who knows? We'll treat you guys. All right.
Take care, everyone. Thank you again,
Bye.
Naomi. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
soon.
Welcome.
Bye, everyone. Have a
Bye.
wonderful night and a wonderful week.
Yes.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.